right, welcome to the agenda this morning on Dominion Broadcast Group, where we delve into the polity of the Nigerian state as it concerns you and I. I am Chike Uwogu. On the agenda today, as the world marks Labor Day 2025, the future of the Nigerian worker appears bleak. While the Nigerian Labour Congress must agitate for the dignity of the Nigerian worker, the federal and state governments must create an enabling environment for both the public and the private sectors to thrive. This year's Labor Day theme, social justice and decent work, two socioeconomic factors that plague the working population, resonates with Nigerians. According to the International Labour Organization, social justice refers to equal economic security and opportunity. Decent work involves opportunities for productive work that delivers a fair income, security in the workplace, better prospects for personal development and social integration. And now let's go through some statistics. In 2023, Nigeria recorded a labor force of 110.18 million. This was laced with a significant concentration in urban areas and a deep youth figure. About 600,000 youths graduate from polytechnics and universities annually in Nigeria. Nigeria is, however, plagued by inequality, unemployment, and a lack of decent work. The figures are disconcerting. Yeah, that's so disconcerting. The wages are grossly unequal. Nigeria scored 35.1% out of 163 countries in the global Gini coefficient per Datafide. This means that income and wealth inequality are moderate but exceptionally high in Nigeria. A federal lawmaker reportedly earns about 21 million naira per month as running costs, though they've come to debunk that. Nobody has seen their pay slip. In contrast, workers are deprived of the minimum wage in some states. The minimum wage of 70,000 naira per month is equivalent to $45. This is far lower than New York's $16.5 per hour minimum wage. Therefore, the take-home pay can hardly sustain workers. Yet, many states refuse to implement the minimum wage. The unemployment rate is high. While it was pegged at 33% in 2023, it was rebased to 4.3% as of the second quarter of 2024 under the ILO standards. This misrepresents the gross underemployment and casualization in the country. Workers are engaged in casual labor, working for a few hours a week. However, the National Bureau of Statistics said in 2023 that 86.5% of the jobs were informal, lacking contracts, lacking pensions, and other benefits. Well, the unemployment crisis is compounded by the exit of international oil companies and multinationals from Nigeria. In this category are the Shell, ENI, ExxonMobil, Total Energies, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, GSK, Sanofi, and Microsoft. They cited a harsh business climate, insecurity, poor electricity, and the depreciation of the local currency. Now turning on to my guest this morning, Dominion Broadcast Group in-house analyst, Dolapo Anjorin joins me in the studio this morning. Dolapo, it's good to have you here.
Yeah, top of the morning to you, Mr. Chike Uwogu.
Well, yeah. Happy new month and happy Workers' Day.
Yeah, same to you.
Well, it's Workers' Day and celebrated all over the world, and in Nigeria, we are celebrating Workers' Day. Well, do workers have anything to justify the celebration for today?
Well, they have a cause, they have a reason to thank God that they are alive. and kicking. That's a good reason.
A good reason to celebrate Workers' Day.
Yes.
But workers in Nigeria, do they really seem happy? You know, considering the environmental conditions of the Nigerian workers in 2025.
Let me start by saying that the labor of our heroes past, you know, is fast becoming, you know, like a trauma to the present day workers in Nigeria.
Are you basically saying that the labors of our heroes past is in vain already? Is that what you're saying?
It's fast becoming.
Fast
becoming.
vain?
Yes,
Okay,
like
how?
a trauma.
How?
When you look at the situation of workers in Nigeria, it's supposed to be a day of hope, but it lacks harmony. The middle class, you know, who is supposed to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, you know, is some factors in the economy is actually eroding, is erasing them away. You have policy flip-flops, you have inflation, you have depreciation of Naira. So basically, workers in Nigeria are actually struggling.
Actually struggling.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get to some of these talking points for today, as it were, for workers. Well, you have a country where the unemployment rate is so high, and despite increased revenue from subsidy removal, many states have done little to improve workers' welfare. Why is it that way?
Well, it's part of the current economic downturn that we're experiencing. Some states are not viable. When you look at certain states, they can't, for example, a state like Yobe, Taraba cannot compete with a state like Lagos. Lagos has been the capital of Nigeria since the colonial times. It has infrastructures that the colonial government has built. It has infrastructures that the military government has built. State like Taraba, you know, it has a comparative disadvantage in this area. And what they can actually depend on is just the federal allocation account, you know, and their internally generated revenue. And most of these states are rentier states. You know, it's been difficult to actually attract foreign investors into some of these states. When you look at the security situation in the country also, you take a look at rule of law. You know, no foreign investor wants to bring their investment into the country if they see that you have a country whereby it will be difficult to get justice when they go to arbitration. So it's pretty difficult to attract, you know, foreign direct investments, you know, into some of these states.
Let's look at the workers themselves. Recently, the NLC chairman, Joe Ajaero, just made a statement saying even the 70,000 minimum wage, it's not even taking them home. You know, I remember talks were ongoing then when this issue of increment in minimum wage, Labour said they wanted 250, then had the roundtable discussion with government and eventually ended up at 70 minimum, while some states even went as far as having 77,000 and 80,000 plus. Now, NLC is saying this minimum wage of 70,000 is not a take-home pay. You can't take people home based on the inflation in the country. Now, is the government pretending that the economy is okay, or is the government actually working towards having a more robust economy at this time, so that workers will be able to, you know, consolidate on the reality on ground?
Well, when you look at it, 70,000 minimum wage, at least with the current exchange rates of today, that should be around $47 or so every month.
That's $45.
Yeah, okay. $45, $47.
Yeah.
Now, let me cite this instance. In 2015, for a single meal, it will cost a family of 5, 4,900 to cook a pot of jollof rice for one single meal. We are in 2025. To prepare the same pot of jollof rice, for a family of 5 for a single meal will cost you 32,000 naira. That is about 693% increase, between 2015 and 2025.
Let me add to what you just said now. If you go back in the year 2018, the average price of a minimum sized dozen eggs sold for about 494 naira, or just call it 500 naira for a crate of egg. Today, a crate of egg, of that same egg, cost about 6,500. That means 70,000 naira can only buy 11.6 crates of eggs, while 30,000 naira at an average cost of 500 naira could buy 60. Then, in 2018 also, the average price of 1 kilogram of tomatoes was about 271 naira per kg. The same quantity is worth more than 5,000 naira today, which means one would need to increase one's income 18 times in the past 7 years to retain the same level of welfare, if that is measured by the consumption of tomatoes only. However, the nominal minimum wage has increased by about 133%, and now people are even struggling to buy food to eat.
Yes. So thank you for complementing my statistics with this example. So when you have 693% increase, between 2015 and 2025, I don't think there's any normal human being on earth whose income has actually grown, by 693%, except people in the class of, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk even lost some money in the first 100 days of Donald Trump.
Of course.
So I don't think that increment would even be feasible.
Yeah, that's to tell you that it is not feasible. You see workers living in suburbs area, very far away from where they work, and they spend 40% of their income on transportation.
You say 40%? Some spend as much as 60% of their income.
No, that's just putting it as a conservative estimate.
All right.
So this is to tell you how much inflation has actually, eaten deep into the average life of a Nigerian worker.
The yearly rent of a one-bedroom, it should be about 200,000 in 2018. A young single employee will need to raise the budget by fourfold to at least about 800,000 to pay for that same apartment today. And that's why you see many people struggling to get an apartment. In Ibadan, for instance, a 3-bedroom flat used to be 60,000 naira many years back.
Yes.
In 2014.
Between 60,000 and 100,000.
Yeah.
Or even let's say
3-bedroom.
Or let me say 60,000 and 120,000.
That was between 2013, 14, 15, 16.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, a 3-bedroom flat today goes as much as 900,000 basic rent. And then if those our friends on the streets, the guys who call themselves the agents, by the time they start adding agency fee, legal fee, caution fee, and all that, okay, call it their own charges, you get as high as 1,200,000 as what they call total package. And then how much is the salary of an average civil servant who will be able to afford to buy or to pay for such an amount? To pay such an amount for an apartment, a 3-bedroom, even a 2-bedroom, 750 total package. So how much is the salary?
Yeah, it's very simple. Let's do the maths. 70,000 naira as minimum wage. Let's say you are a civil servant, you have a family of 5. For you to actually enjoy a meal of jollof rice on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, it will cost you 32,000 naira. So let's just subtract 32,000 naira from 70,000 naira. How much is left?
So you have about 38,000.
38,000 naira.
Yeah.
Now,
but you see, I have a question on a lighter note. Okay. You've been talking about rice. Like you're a fan of rice.
No, I'm not a fan of rice.
All right, let's get back to the discussion.
That's just the apt example that
it's the most common staple food right now.
So now, in 2018, 63% of most Nigerians, spent 58% of their income on food, and while in 2023, down to 2025, the percentage has actually gone up to 97%. So if people are spending 97% of what they earn on food, what would the remaining 3% do? Well, as an average worker, in Nigeria?
3%? Well, maybe the 3% will go on paying electricity bills, utility bills, and that's all. And then he saves up again for next month. And then how will he pay school fees?
So you can actually see how economic conditions
how
have
he pays
actually
rent, transportation to his place of work.
Exactly. So you can see how the economic conditions
and maybe
have actually
the person has a wife who he has to maintain.
Yeah. Have school children who they are going to pay their school fees.
Yeah.
So it shows you that the economic conditions have actually choked, an ordinary average worker in Nigeria.
The implication?
The implication is poverty. When you look at the $45, it is way below what World Bank, it's at the extreme end of what World Bank, determines as the poverty level. So if you do the calculation, that should be around $2.17 per day. So it means that is what an average Nigerian worker is earning on a daily basis, $2.17.
Well, is it that the issue of subsidies that have been removed from some commodities in Nigeria that is exacerbating the sufferings of the citizens?
Well, it's a combination of so many things, actually. Not only petroleum subsidy.
There are other subsidies too.
There are other subsidies too. Okay, I would love to do a little bit of comparative analysis, between Nigeria and some other countries, what they earn. Take as an example, in Morocco, the minimum wage in Morocco is $300 in a month, and the inflation there is just about 4.7.5%. And they have subsidized food, they have subsidized transport. Then you have Rwanda. Rwanda has a GDP of about $792 in 2010, and it has grown to about $2,000, in 2023. And it is because they had strong infrastructural reforms.
You're talking about the per capita?
That's per capita. Per head. Yes, income per head. So now let us move to Asia. You have a country like Vietnam, that has an industrial hub. It has 3% inflation rates. There's job security. It is a highly industrialized society. Then you have Indonesia, who also have a diversified economy. Have a strong SME support. In the Latin America, you have Mexico that has working reforms, plus trade partnership that has actually given back to, real economic impact. You have Brazil, who has just increased its minimum wage, and you have that improvement in all health, sectors in those countries. Compare with Nigeria that has inflation rate as high as, let's say, galloping inflation rate like 10:1. That's about 36% or so. So, what do you expect? You expect that people will continue to live below the poverty line, extreme poverty.
Another factor, the unstable state of the naira.
Yes.
Is it a major factor too?
Yeah.
Because if the naira is not stable, and then you also look at a situation whereby, and this is a source of worry, you have governors of states generating so much money just to pay salaries. in states, meaning that there is no productive arrangement within the Confederate States of Nigeria. So all they get is get allocations, get your IGR, and pump it into paying salaries. Do we have a bloated workforce in Nigeria?
Well, I wouldn't say that we have a bloated workforce in Nigeria. I wouldn't say that. I would say that what we have is a bloated executive arm of government. When you look at this current government, you find out that it has the highest numbers of ministers in their cabinet, almost 50. I can't remember the actual number now. You know, if you compare it with all other administrations, it's the highest. So when you have such high amount of ministers in the federal cabinet, it means, you know, there will be an increase in the overhead cost of running those offices. We've seen governors, we've seen them employing about 156 aides. We've seen the Nigerian senator, you know, employing over and above 200 aides. You know, it's a rentier system where cronyism, you know, has actually, you know, taken deep roots, because this political elite needs to satisfy people, you know, who help them attain power. So it's like we are saying thank you.
A compensation
government. So that is why you see that we have an over bloated, instead of saying that we have an over bloated public service, we should also say that we also have an over bloated executive arm of government.
Well, and that's a source of worry, and I hope...
and don't forget, the Orosanye report has not been implemented till today. Well, the Orosanye report talked about merging
ministries, departments, and agencies.
You know, this will help, you know, cut down cost of governance.
We'll go on this break, and when we come back, more talking points on labor matters is the agenda on Dominion Brokers Group. Stick around, don't go away. Welcome back from that break. Still the agenda on Dominion Brokers Group, and here we're looking at Workers' Day. How will workers' welfare be attended to, especially in Nigeria? What will make the average worker happy? Before we went on the break, we're talking about the Orosanye report, where it has been suggested that ministries, departments, and agencies should be merged. Well, we'll still go there. But I have this here. The situation also for workers is compounded by taxes. Nigerians who can barely afford their basic needs they also have to pay taxes. In structured organizations, they have to pay taxes. If they don't, they face multiple taxes in informal ventures, endeavors. And then you want to ask again, how can there be a rebate for workers now that we have so much economic downturn? However, I'll be turning back to Dolapo. Dolapo, what do we do as a country? What should government do to get a better welfare package for workers? That's one question. And the second question is, how do we delve out of consumption alone and move into production as a country?
Okay, as it is now, I would liken the GDP of a country to a cake. Take as an instance, if you bake a cake for 10 people, and at the end of the day, 20 people, turned up to eat the cake. Remember that originally you baked that cake for 10 people, and 20 people turned up. It means that the cake will not be able to satisfy 20 people. Not minding the fact that when you begin to cut the slices from the cake, you get fragments that falls off from the cake again.
You get some crumbs.
Some crumbs. That is how I can liken the economic situation of Nigeria, to baking a cake at the moment. And that is to tell you that I'm trying to paint a picture of, GDP per population. The current population of Nigeria, is bigger than the cake. So what do? We bake a bigger cake, or let me say we bake a bigger pie to accommodate 240 million people. I don't know if you've heard in the past, people normally make reference to the 1970s, where the good old days, where they had nice times when they were in schools, universities. They eat lunch with, turkey, chicken. They can buy stuff like corned beef. Have you wondered why that was possible? It was possible because we had a bigger economy with, a reasonable population. But as the population began to grow, the GDP began to shrink. The cake began to, got smaller and smaller. You also throw in the faction of, you also throw in the issue of corruption into it also. So as the cake shrank, the population is becoming bigger, and the cake can actually not go around, the populace again. So now, how do we bake a bigger pie? Number one, we must fix the economy. And how do you fix the economy? You must attract foreign direct investment. Already there is an over-dependence on oil. Nigeria has not been able to diversify away from crude oil.
On crude oil.
Yes. Every successive government that has, gotten into power is too fixated. They are too fixated on crude oil. Now, let me tell us a story. I read the story on the Economist magazine. South Korea, in the primordial times of 1960, the director of South Korea back then, Park Chung-hee, called the director of Hyundai, Chung-hyun. He told Chung-hyun, he said, motor tankers are what is in vogue at the moment. I want you to go and build motor tankers. What did the director of Hyundai, what did he do? He went to Greece and secured 2 contracts to build tankers of 260,000 tons. When he secured that contract, he came back to South Korea. He found out that there is no shipping yard in South Korea. He went to Barclays Bank to secure a loan to build shipping yards. However, there are no South Koreans who knows how to build a ship. What did South Korea do? They sent 60 engineering disciples to Scotland to learn how to build a ship, to learn how to build ships. Before 2 years, they were able to deliver the motor tanker ships that they secured from Greece. Now, today, South Korea owns 2/5 of the markets of modern ships, where where you can actually build all these modern ships, for transport vessel and so on and so forth. Now, a town in South Korea called Okpo, where they make ships, has a GDP per capita of $30,000 per individual. That's
just one town.
Yes, that's just one town. That's roughly the GDP per capita for UAE. Now, as at the time that Park Chung-hee took power in the 1960s, South Korea's GDP was $91. North Korea had a GDP of $1,906 because North Korea was much more industrialized than South Korea. But now South Korea has actually overtaken North Korea.
So basically what you are talking about is you're giving some insight into a productive economy.
Yes, a productive economy.
Yes.
Around that same period, 1965, Nigeria has a GDP of $1,065 per head when you talk about GDP. Now, you have countries like Brazil. Brazil has an economy, has a manufacturing sector that builds airplane. As at the time when they gave birth to Embraer, Brazil has a GDP of $400. For the $400, Brazil has graduated from being a manufacturer of a airplane, to manufacturing of automobiles. Now, when you look at this country, you also have India. You have Tata, Infosys, Wipro. They all make a combined revenue of $25 billion as revenue. Now, you look at this country. Are their stories different from Nigeria? Their stories are not different from Nigeria. South Korea, Brazil, India, they have gone through military rule. Military rule have destroyed their institutions. Is there corruption in India? The answer is yes. I'm sure you would have heard about the Raj license. That's institutionalized corruption in India. The same thing goes for South Korea. There is corruption in South Korea also. But what did Park Chung-hee, what did he do? He asked all the chaebols in South Korea that are stolen money to invest the stolen money inside South Korea.
So now this leads me to
no. I'm going somewhere. I don't want to forget.
Okay.
I'll round up as soon as possible.
Because
I'm
of
so
our
sorry.
time. Yeah.
Now, and what did he do in return? He dropped charges of corruption against them. So this is to say that what is actually lacking in the country today is there's lack of vision and there's lack of leadership. Let me cite one more example again. You have Singapore. Singapore produces nothing and they don't manufacture anything spectacular. But they notice that they are equidistant to London and New York in an instantly manner. What did they do? They built a call center right in the middle of the ocean. They knew that in order to take advantage of the maritime industry, everybody in the world needs to go through them. Nigeria, on the other side, we can borrow a leaf from this also by diversifying our economy, to other sectors of the economy. I'm talking about the maritime sector of the economy now. We have a good what do they call it? A good local time. Sometimes we are 1 hour ahead of London. We are on the same time, or sometimes we are 6 hours, behind New York, or max 7 hours. Why can't we also build a call center in the middle of the ocean so that other countries and continents of the world can go through Nigeria, and we can be able to earn millions of dollars through the maritime sector of the economy? This is one sector of the economy that has not been tapped into. So if you have a bigger GDP by becoming a productive economy, it will have an effect on the labor force. Don't forget what South Korea did, immediately gave them over 350,000 jobs. And in a small town like Okpo, you have a GDP per capita of $30,000 per person. So that tells you that each citizen is bringing at least $30,000, to the table. They are well catered for.
Okay. So now let me ask you this while we try to round off. You've given examples of the Asian tigers.
Yes.
You've given examples of Europe. What is wrong with Africa?
I said it. Lack of vision and lack of leadership.
Lack of vision and lack of leadership.
Yes.
Let's come down to Nigeria. You see, the dark continent, or the African continent itself, is a continent that is blessed with all the resources in the world. However, would you say it is because of the imperialist influence that is subduing or subverting the growth of Africa, especially when it comes to production? Because I don't see any African country that has produced or innovated anything new in recent times.
I wouldn't say because of the imperialists, or put it down to what we call imperialism, so to say. We are celebrating Workers' Day today. Don't forget that the reason why we are celebrating Workers' Day is because of the Industrial Revolution that happened, during the 17th and 18th century. Largely, the world was, based on an agrarian society that graduated into an industrial society. So imperialism as it is, is not totally a bad idea.
Even when you have the bourgeois trampling on the proletariats?
No, that is not in that context.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No.
So
Imperialism.
The bourgeois in this sense are the imperialists in this sense, in this context, or they are the bourgeois, the white bourgeois who have come to capitalize on Africa and seen Africa as a labor center.
They actually brought development to Africa.
Oh, Africa, some would say Africa has been developed before the whites came.
Yeah, Africa has their own technology.
So why did we, as a people, leave our identity and then, enmesh ourselves with some imperial cloak?
I think it's too convenient for you to use that excuse. Take as an instance, the British has left the shores of Nigeria since 1960.
But they still control.
How did they control?
All the oil wells, all the corporations,
the
corporations you have.
That's not true.
So why is it that when you have a president who is any individual contesting for president, the person has to go to Chatham House to win an election in Nigeria?
No. You don't have to go to Chatham House to win an election.
Let's look at the trajectory.
No.
That is an empirical.
That is not a strong enough point.
No, but there is an empirical evidence. It is empirical.
It may be empirical, but
Tinubu went there.
It may be
Jonathan went there.
It may be empirical, but it is not strong enough. It is not strong enough.
They're still in control.
India was colonized by the British,
but they decided to do one thing.
What did they do?
They left every other thing and picked up only the technology of the whites.
And they created what?
They've been making cars.
They created their own identity.
Exactly.
Right? Why has that stopped a country like Nigeria or other African countries?
The same question I put to you, what is wrong with Africa? I ask you the question. what is wrong with Africa?
And I answered, I said, lack of vision and, you know, leadership.
So when you say lack of vision, is it that when our leaders travel abroad for bilateral talks, working visits and all that, that they don't see? Are they blind, that they don't have vision for their own country? Don't they see what is happening out there? Mr. President just came back from France after a working visit. He worked from France and he came back. Are you saying that he lacks vision too? Is that what you are saying? That he couldn't see good things there to replicate in Africa, in Nigeria?
The problem is that when you have, when you don't put your best foot forward, you know, there is tendency to have all this kind of lapses and, you know, gaps that we are seeing in the country at the moment.
Are you saying that since 1960 we've not even had our best foot?
No, I wouldn't say that since 1960.
Or since 1999, let's streamline it.
Well, since 1999, that was when we have the rise of the middle class. You know, right now, the middle class is going into extinction because of negative economic indices. You know, between 1999 and let me say probably 2015, when you had the rise of the middle class, where you can actually say that, okay, yes, the lives of, you know, an average Nigerian worker has improved. You have great reforms that happened. You have the telecommunication reform. You have the banking, the banking reform.
The telecom thing is good.
Yeah,
but is it affordable for many Nigerians today?
It's affordable for many Nigerians today.
You have also complained about your data.
Because
SIM is not...
No, because SIM... Wait, hold on.
You are looking at the hardware. We are looking at the service.
Yeah, the service. See, let me tell you something. When you go to places like, for example, in Ibadan or Mokola roundabout in Dugbe, you find telephone companies in those areas. They are selling laptops. You have people repairing phones. You have people repairing laptops. It has created job opportunities.
Okay.
That is what a reform, that is what the reform does.
Why has it not translated to a robust economy?
It has translated to a robust economy because, take as an example, in places like Calabar in Lagos, do you know how much exchange hands on a daily basis because of telecom revolution? Almost $1 billion naira
so
on a daily basis.
Why are workers then
The reasons why workers are groaning is because you have galloping inflation that is eating deep into whatever workers are eking out, you know, as living.
Well, we'll continue this discussion. However, it's still Workers' Day. We wish all workers a happy Workers' Day. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this discussion today. Dolapo Anjorin has been here making some sense from some of the discussions we've been having in the studio. Let's keep the conversation going. Do follow us on all our social media platforms. And the handle is at Dominion Broadcast. And our platforms are the YouTube, the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And on the app X, formerly known as Twitter, the handle is at Dominion Cast. My name is Chike Ubogu. Do have a great day and be good. Happy Workers' Day.